Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. We'll look at 2 Samuel chapter 12 this week. The prophet Nathan walks into the palace and tells King David a story. And then he asks what the king thinks should be done about the matter. Nathan tells this story. Two men live in the same town. One man is affluent, he's wealthy, and is rich, flocks and herds everywhere you look. The other man is poor, and all he owns in the world is this one little lamb. He raised that lamb himself, fed it from his own plate, let it sleep curled up against him at night. That lamb was the most precious possession he had, and is the only possession he had. The story goes that a traveler shows up at the rich man's house, and their custom says you feed him, you become hospitable to him. The rich man, who had 1,000 animals to choose from, he decides to take the poor man's lamb instead. He slaughtered it and gave it to the traveler. David hears the story and he is furious. He says, the man who did this deserves to die. Then Nathan looks at the king and says, you are the man. You took something that wasn't yours. You took something that you didn't love. You took something you didn't need. 3 sentences, and David's year of silence and cover up simply shatters. But what's worth sitting with is the year before that moment, because between the sin and the confrontation, David had been doing what every person does when they know they've done something wrong and can't face it. What David does, and what a lot of people do, is build a story that lets them keep living with themselves. Nobody goes out saying, let's do something evil today. What they do is build an explanation good enough to live inside that. The rich man in Nathan's story probably had one too. He probably called it necessity. He called it obligation. He called it, well, the lamb was just a lamb, and I have a guest to feed. And I'm a man of importance with responsibilities. Explanations. That explanation lets you look at what you did and make it acceptable. Jeremiah says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. This isn't a verse about other people's hearts. It's a verse about my heart. It's a verse about your heart. The capacity for self-deception runs very deep, my friends. We're not neutral observers of our own behavior. We are skilled, practiced advocates for ourselves. And we use that skill every time we need to justify what we did. The work of honesty is to look at what you did and call it for what it is. Say what it actually was. Strip away every story that softens it and tell the truth in one sentence. See, David eventually got there, not by himself. God had to press down on him for a year before the confrontation came. But when he heard the story, he recognized himself in it. You are the man. In fact, Hebrews says, you the man. Here's what that actually means for you and for me this week. Think of one thing right now. The way you talked to your spouse last night and what you told yourself was, I was so tired. The money you spent and didn't mention, the way you've been treating somebody at work, and the reason you've decided, that's justified. Pick the one that's already in your head, perhaps, because maybe it's already there as you're listening to me. This week, do 2 things. First, say the plain fact of it to God in your own words. Be specific. I yelled at my wife because I was tired. I lied about where the money went. I've been cold to that person on purpose. Told myself they deserve it. Say that sentence to the Lord before you leave this morning. Second, say it to one other person. Somebody safe, a spouse, a friend, maybe somebody from a small group. You don't need an explanation. You just need someone who can look at you and say it back to you if you ever need to hear it again. And remember, we can do both of these because Jesus looked at what was actually true. What's actually true about you and about me, and he didn't run away. Instead, he took the punishment David deserved, you and I deserve, when he heard, "You the man," and he carried it to the cross instead of handing it back to him. Same is true with you and me. We can be honest with God because of the finished work of Jesus on the cross. So don't delay. Come to the Father this morning. My friends, God bless you, and I'll see you in a couple of days.